Okay, so I've been doing a deep clean because it is spring, it's that time of year. But I've been purging a lot of my books. So I managed to free up almost 3 whole shelves. All of these used to be covered in books. So up here I have my fiction books. And then I've got my art books. And down here's nature books. And then down here I have, this is kind of like my rotating shelf, I guess, of these are books that I need to read or I'm currently reading. My journals and my tarot cards, which I need to organize and make that look pretty. And then down here are just a bunch of random things I pulled off the shelf that I need to find new spots for, like some games. So that leaves this whole shelf free. Right now these are the cookbooks, which I think I might move. But basically I'm just trying to make space for some housemates to put their things, if they would like. In book club, we read The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, and it was really fun. It was a fun book club book to discuss. It's about a woman named Nora whose life is falling apart. She recently broke up with her boyfriend. She just lost her job. She's just feeling very alone and depressed, and her cat dies too at the beginning of the book, which is sad. So she's just like getting hit from all sides. And she decides that she just doesn't want to live anymore. It's very kind of reminded me of like It's a Wonderful Life. So she ends up in a place, like an in-between place. She's not quite alive or dead yet, called the Midnight Library. And basically she gets to jump around into different lives that could have been, different versions of her lives, depending on decisions that she made differently. She's not fully satisfied in any of these lives. She always somehow ends up just slightly disappointed in the circumstances, or like because of the decisions she made in that life. So she just keeps trying out new ones. So basically when in her depression, that's all she kept thinking about was all the decisions that she made, and that she kept making the wrong decisions, and so she has all these regrets essentially. So being able to go back into these other lives that could have been, where she thinks that it would be better because if she had just, if she had made a different decision at that time, and going back and fixing these regrets, she thought she'd be happy, but she's still not happy in any of these lives. I remember when I was reading it, just getting so frustrated with her because I just wanted her to pick one and then make it the life that she wanted. But she would just, like, one thing would be disappointing to her and then she'd just give up. But she learns in the end, she grows from it. She comes to realize that, it's not necessarily the big decisions necessarily that make or break her life in the end. It's the little ones that she makes that end up making her happy, like just the little things she does with with people in relationships, not necessarily like the circumstances of her life. She comes to realize that's not as important to her, not, you know, like job or career, or where she lives, things like that, but it's the people that are in her life that she comes to realize. So yeah, it was a very fun book. It was very easy to read. It's 288 pages, so it's pretty short. I mean, I thought it was a little predictable. Like, nothing that happened in the book really surprised me in any way. But it was full of, you know, nice, pretty sentences. She wasn't a black hole, she decided. She was a volcano. And like a volcano, she couldn't run away from herself. She'd have to stay there and tend to that wasteland. She could plant a forest inside herself. I also recently just got into this new manga series that I've been really enjoying. It's called Hirayasumi. I think that's how you say it. But basically it just means just like a little house. This manga is like a slice of life. And it's about Hiro and Natsumi. And oh my gosh, this is so adorable. And funny. I was laughing out loud. But basically it's about Hiro, who's just like this happy-go-lucky guy, single guy. He doesn't take life very seriously. Like, he's always happy and looking for a good time, and just seems to have like this joy for life, which is really refreshing. And he inherits this house from an elderly woman that he befriended. And then his cousin, who's recently just got into art school, comes to live with him because he's in Tokyo. And she's like the opposite. She's like full of anxiety and so unsure of herself. And she likes to draw manga, but she doesn't want anyone to know because she thinks it's nerdy. And so it's just really cute. And it's about just their adventures that they go on. Discovered this from a show actually on Amazon Prime. It's streaming, and they turned the manga into a live action TV show, which I highly recommend watching. It's so funny and just like heartwarming, and it's like word for word straight out of this manga. These clouds look promising. I hope it rains. I need to weed. It's my little grape hyacinths. Oh, hello there, sir. The soil's very hydrophobic. I can show you when I water. It just runs right off the top of the soil. This next book that I read, I did not enjoy as much, and that is Kafka on the Shore by Haruki Murakami, which I'm sure everyone's heard of. This is my first book by him, and I've always had people recommend his writing to me because he does a lot of magical realism, and that's one of my favorite genres. Definitely absorbing and intriguing and bizarre, but I wouldn't say that I really enjoyed the experience of reading this book. Okay, so the plot of Kafka on the Shore, I don't even know if I can explain what's going on in this book. There's two main characters, and it switches between their two storylines. So it's about Kafka, a 15-year-old boy who runs away from home, and Nakata, Mr. Nakata, who's an elderly man that can talk to cats. And then there was like a third storyline that kind of got lost midway through and never actually resolved, which I was annoyed about an event that happened right during World War II with some school children on a field trip to the woods. They were like hunting mushrooms, and they all fainted at the same time, and then like the military came to investigate because they thought maybe it had something to do with the enemy trying to like test out poison gas or something. So the first half of the book switches between that storyline, Kafka and Mr. Nakata, and then halfway through the book he just drops the third storyline, and so that's already one reason why I didn't like this book as much. Also, Mr. Nakata loses his ability to talk to cats later on in the book too, which another reason why I lost interest. That was one of the more interesting parts of the book, was his conversations with cats. But basically what sets the whole thing off is Kafka running away. Kafka was living with his dad. And when he was younger, when he was like 4, his mother and his older sister took off without never to be heard from again. So he not only is Kafka growing up feeling abandoned, but then also his father's not a very comforting person and doesn't really want him around, it seems like, and essentially decides to curse him. Essentially, he's doomed to end up sleeping with his mother. And his father adds in that it will happen with his sister as well. So he's just growing up with this hanging over his head. This kind of spurs Kafka to run away from home, but every woman he meets that he doesn't know, he is constantly thinking like, oh, could this be my mother? Could this be my sister? And then the other storyline is Mr. Nakata, who can talk to cats, looks for missing cats for people. And then eventually, when Mr. Nakata finds out who's taking the cats and why, it sends him on this mission to go find this entrance stone, he calls it, which supposedly will open up a portal to another portal to like the spirit world, and he ends up basically going to the same town that Kafka's in, because it's all connected somehow. But so I feel like for Kafka, this is so hard to get out because I don't know what was happening half the time. But so for Kafka, I think from what his motivations, from what I understand of his motivations, is he was so, I think that he was so sick of having this like destiny of doom hanging over him all the time, that he finally just decided that he was gonna just, if this thing was gonna happen anyways, he, instead of like just dreading and waiting for the moment for it to happen and not knowing, he was going to just go out and on his terms and make it happen, on his, at his time and place of his choosing, just to get it over with, essentially. That was the gist I got from Kafka's motivations about like what, like thinking it was his sister, thinking his mother, and then still pursuing the relationship in that way, and still following through with the decision to sleep with them. Obviously, there's the authors exploring themes of destiny, and identity, and how much control you have over your circumstances, and then grief, because I think Miseki's character was the embodiment of grief, and how you can get lost and trapped in the past when you don't move on and live in the world, when you decide to, like, you know, isolate yourself because of grief. I think for Mr. Nakata, the point of his character was maybe like to contrast between those two ends of the spectrum of Kafka, at the, you know, beginning of life and struggling with the burden of destiny and expectations of how he's supposed to behave in life, and then Miseki on the other end, like kind of nearing the end of life, where she's like given up and doesn't want to keep living life. She's just like, I've had the life I wanted and it's gone now, and now I don't want to start over or enjoy life anymore. And so then I think Mr. Nakata was kind of like the balance between those two spectrums, because he was like Miseki, he also had something in his life that happened when he was to himself, when he was young, that changed his life forever. And he, like Kafka, he's also kind of on this quest and journey, and supposed to be performing a certain role, but his attitude from those two other characters was like completely different. He just like went with the flow, accepted it. He didn't have an ego, essentially, he was so humble, and just he was almost like a conduit for events. Just like, you know, if something needed to happen or if something needed to get done, he was there to do it. And even though he kind of got handed a bad hand in life, he seemed like he was still a very happy person. He still enjoyed his life as it was, and even though he might have had like a disability, he still made the best of it and still had a life that he was fulfilled by. And I think that's very admirable, and I think Mr. Nakata was probably my favorite character. And there's probably so many things in here that maybe the author was trying to get across that I just completely missed, and that's okay. Like I said, I didn't really enjoy the story, and I even didn't really enjoy the writing style, to be honest, either. There was a lot of scenes that kind of made me uncomfortable, and not in a like growing, challenging, learning kind of way, but in just like a, why do I have to read this? So yeah, that was my experience with Murakami. Not sure at this moment if I will ever pick up another one of his books, but we'll see. You never know. This happens every year. My lilac tree blooms so beautifully, and then there's a big snow, and then all the leaves fall off. So sad. Good morning. I'm about to go meet up with some friends to go trail running, but we got snow yesterday and then it froze last night, so it may end up just being a hike, but I did bring my spikes just in case. Today is Saturday, April 18th. It's like our first or second snow of the year. So, after reading Kafka on the Shore, I definitely needed a little bit of a palate cleanser. So, I started reading The Enchanted April by Elizabeth von Arnim, and I have to tell you, loving this book so far. This was exactly what I needed to get out of that headspace. This is just delightful. It's about, first of all, it's an older book, so it has a certain language to it, and there's that time period with where there's customs and manners that we don't have today. So reading books like that always transports me right away to another time and place. But this was written in 1922, so it's the Roaring Twenties, the Flappers, and it's about two women in London. They're housewives, and they're on the edge. They're had it. They just need a break. And so they find this. One of them finds an advertisement in the newspaper for a castle in Italy that's for rent, and so she's like, "This is what I need. I need to get away from London. I need to get away from my husband." And from society and all of the expectations, and just have a relaxing holiday for a month where I don't have to talk to anyone or be around anyone, and I can just be in the sunshine. And girl, I feel that. And so yeah, so she teams up with this other woman to rent the castle in Italy because it is a bit expensive. So they're like, oh, if we split it, it'll be cheaper. They've never met each other before this day, but she just saw that the other one was also looking at the newspaper advertisement. And eventually they decide to get 2 more women to share the castle with them so that it's even cheaper. Again, 2 more strangers. So it jumps between the different thoughts of the different women about each other, about society, what's proper, and their different reasons for going on this trip. And it's very funny. I find this kind of humor. It's like the same kind of humor as Ella Montgomery a little bit, like where she's kind of like poking fun at the society of the day and just saying, hey, you don't need to be caught up in being good all the time or being correct. And sometimes what you need is just to be true to yourself, to be happy. And yeah, I'm almost done. One of the women's husbands just showed up, so that caused some drama, I'm sure. There's also a movie they made from 1991 directed by Mike Newell. It's a movie adaptation of this book, which I've seen as well, and that one also was very charming. But the book is... they did a pretty good job of adapting it. I thought a lot of the same charm came through in the movie. You get a lot more of the thoughts of the characters than you would in the movie. So that's been really fun to read, and adds even more humor to the story. So once I'm done with Enchanted April, I think I'm going to move on to Swann's Way by Marcel Proust. I'm not sure how to say that. I've been meaning to read Proust for a while. He's been on my list, so I thought I'd finally pick it up. I hear that his writing's very descriptive, like of locations and environments, so I'm excited to get transported in that way. I also wanted to talk about a few films I've seen recently that I loved. One of them was a Japanese film called Shall We Dance, and it was so charming. There's that word again. But it was and funny. It had some quirky characters in it, but it was about a middle-aged Japanese man who is kind of getting a little bored with his life. He keeps passing by on his commute home. He keeps passing by this dance studio, and he can see, it all lit up at night and people dancing around in there and having fun. And there's like a mysterious beautiful woman in the window that he keeps seeing. So one day he decides to just check it out and signs up for lessons, mostly because he wants to get to know the woman, the mysterious woman. But he starts to realize like he really does enjoy the dancing. It's like ballroom dancing, and he starts getting into it and like the competition. And it was very sweet. I thought, again, the characters there's full of quirky characters, like some of the other people taking lessons. I definitely laughed out loud a few times. It was a very sweet movie, and I think it's streaming right now. I watched it on Mubi, and then I also watched a French film called A Tale of Springtime by Eric Romer. I had watched another Eric Romer film called The Four Adventures of Rainette and Mirabelle, which not a few years ago, and I loved it. The scenery was beautiful in the French countryside, and like just the little quirky adventures the two main characters got into. And then this one, by Eric Romer, A Tale of Springtime, had very similar vibes with two women who meet at a party. One's an older, like a philosophy professor, and the other's like a younger college age student training to be a pianist. And yeah, they meet at a party and hit it off, and then the girl invites the professor over to stay with her because the professor has house guests in her house, and kind of doesn't have anywhere to stay at the moment. She's like letting her cousin use her apartment, and there's an awkward run-in with the friend's father, who's like similar to her own age. Tension between the father and the daughter because he's dating a woman that's closer to the daughter's age, who the daughter hates and doesn't get along with, and so they kind of keep running into each other, and you can tell like the younger friend is like trying to contrive ways to get her friend the professor to like set her up with her dad because she prefers her over her dad's current girlfriend. And then they end up going to their house in the French countryside, and shenanigans ensue. You get so many lovely scenes of like French apartments. That's what I like about Eric Romer that I've noticed so far in his films, is the way he sets up the scenes in such beautiful rooms, full of books and lamps and things around that make it seem like something got interrupted in the middle of some sort of activity. So there's like maybe leftover dinner and drinks and glasses and or a pile of books that someone was reading, or like clothes strewn around. So like all the sets feel very lived in, but also very beautiful to look at. Environments that I would want to be in, and how I would want to like decorate my house. And that I saw, Tale of Springtime, is on the Criterion channel currently. So that's been my April so far. I hurt my knee on my last trail run, so I've just been icing it every day, wearing a brace, trying to stretch it out. I wasn't able to, today's Saturday, and I wasn't able to go trail running today, but hopefully I can get this mended soon, so I can go back out and start running again, because I really had a great time and I want to keep going with the trail running.